So let's shift a little bit. You are actually speaking at TEXSOM on a panel discussion of, what's the actual title? It's like, what makes a great wine list?
Or award winning.
Why are you on that panel?
Because, right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Do you have one of those?
Yeah. Thank you for the setup. So yeah, Pappas Brothers has a Grand Award, Wine Spectator Grand Award at each location. And for the longest while, they were the only company with 3 Grand Awards in the whole world.
Wow.
So since 2019, when the third one got their award, from 2019 to just this past year, they were the only ones with 3 Grand Awards. And there's a group in San Francisco that now has 3. But, for our industry, it's like one of the greatest honors a wine list can get. So it was tremendous.
You also, for Michelin, you were just announced as this past year as Texas's best sommelier. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, the Michelin Sommelier Award. Yeah.
Which was great. On that. I know.
Last year was really special.
It was a great year all around. Ciao, y'all. I'm Jessica Dupuy, guest host for a special TEXSOM series on the Italian Wine Podcast, covering the 2025 TEXSOM Conference in Dallas, Texas. Join me in the heart of the Lone Star State as we dive into conversations with key speakers and attendees, exploring career paths, challenges, and the latest trends shaping the wine industry today. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncork Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in-state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas-made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas Wine Tidbit in every episode, a fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene. All right. Well, we're here with Stephen McDonald. Thank you so much for joining us for this TEXSOM series on Italian Wine Podcast. First of all, some of you may recognize Stephen. You actually did this with me for the BBWO when it came to Austin, Texas in March.
By the way, the presentation was one of the best presentations I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the insane number of wines you were able to taste there and meet different producers all in the heart of Texas was pretty cool.
Exactly. That's really good.
Thanks for joining us again. Just to give people context and everything, I wonder if you could kind of recap, just give us an idea of who you are, what you do, and then we'll talk a little bit about TEXSOM.
Yeah. So I'm the executive wine director for Pappas Brothers Steakhouse. So I live in Houston, but I look over our 2 Houston stores and our 1 in Dallas. I've been with Pappas for nearly 15 years.
I didn't realize that.
It's been a great journey. Passed MS in 18.
So while you were at Pappas Brothers, you were able to do Master Sommelier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So previously, New York, that's where I passed advanced, but all the time at Pappas studying for MS and got through in 18 and then again in 18.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like I was there right after you had passed and we had a dinner that was pairing different steaks with sherry.
Yes. You were there in between the 2 passes.
It was that. Okay. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was
all sherry, all steak. It was great.
All unexpected. Right. But it totally worked. Okay. So in your journey, kind of how did TEXSOM get into the mix for you? Have you come to a few of them?
So over the years, probably a few times volunteering, like attended once, and this time speaking. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of just the case for a lot of Texas-based sommeliers. Like at some point you're going to end up getting involved with TEXSOM, and then obviously people from other parts of the country too. But I feel like that's probably actually where I first met you, was TEXSOM.
Probably. And it's the place you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like this one time a year, all your friends and colleagues and peers, plus you get to learn stuff. Like this is the place to be for August for the trade.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this morning we were actually in a seminar together in which June Rodil, Christy Frank, and Melissa Monosoff kind of walked us through how to approach tasting. Was there anything that you took away from that seminar that was impressive, aside from some of the cool wines?
Well, they're finally saying what needs to be said in the sense that the regions are changing, the styles are changing. And when you are trying to study white Rioja, for example, you have to study more than just the one producer, right?
Yeah.
From a calibration and a blind tasting perspective. It's same with Beaujolais, and they said it out loud, right? Australia is making a huge impact in really balanced wines. And so you got to open your mind. You got to really think about climate, but I'm happy somebody's actually having that conversation.
Yeah, it was insightful to be able to hear some things from them. I mean, I love that, I know that Christy Frank was quoting something that she had heard from Wines of Australia years ago, but where she said something like, what Pinot promises, Grenache delivers.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
thought
That's great.
that was a pretty good mic drop. We were tasting 3 different Pinot Noirs blind and trying to, determine what they were. And everybody got down to it was probably between Pinot Noir and Grenache. And it was a really great conversation about how do you get to that next step and really, determine what it is. They ended up being Pinot Noir.
Right. Structure and texture, I think, are a big thing. And that's what she was also talking about. When people talk about being an instinctual taster, I think that's actually what they are tasting is they're paying attention to texture and structure. There may be some like flavor things that they can, instinctually grab onto, but I think that's what they mean. When somebody's an instinctive taster, I think that's what's going on.
Gut. Do you mind if I ask you, because we also did have some Italian wines in there, and I got so excited because I've kind of been living in the world of Italian wine for a while now, but I get excited when people who I haven't been in that world with do say something like, smelling this wine, I'm tasting this wine. Oh, this is Italian. Yep. So we already know we're there. Yeah. Before anything else is being said. What do you think that is?
So there's a signature that the wines from that country, because again, that country more or less has similar surroundings, right? You got mountains in the middle and you got coasts on either side, right? Mostly. So however that is producing a product that is consistent across all the regions in some way is where people are picking up on that. But I was super happy to see the whole room when they picked up the glass. They're like, oh, obviously we're in Italian.
The entire room. Exactly. Room. Well, and I loved it because they ended up being, one was a Nerello Mescalese, so Etna Rosso. And then we also ended up with Brunello di Montalcino. While they were walking us through tasting that, of course, there's, people are starting to rumble like, I think it's this, and ultimately, I also find it interesting that those 3 red grapes are the ones we all tend to mistake a little bit with each other, right? Like if you're, that first level of blind tasting, trying to evaluate what is in the glass. For a while, I thought the Etna Rosso might have been a Sangiovese. And then, we got to it, what it was, right? Or vice versa. Someone next to me called Nebbiolo for the Brunello. Did you struggle with that and going through the MS or things?
Right. Yeah. Well, so my first fine dining job was at an Italian restaurant. And so part of your daily setup is making sure all the by the glass wines are still sound, right? Yeah. Plus you're checking anything that you open for flaws. There was this like one Girdon station where everything happened. So you get to taste Barolo and Brunello and Sicily Etna like 7 or 8 times a night. Yeah. At least. And I was very kind of new at this at the time. And so when I would hear other people getting confused, I was like, what are you, dumb? Because to me, it was so clear. To me, it was so clear. It was like, this is obviously Sangiovese, hello. And same thing for Nebbiolo and Nerello Mescalese to a certain extent. So it's like, if you really want to tease them apart, you really need to be working with them and tasting them constantly. Yeah. And I think that's true for any category, because on the opposite end of the spectrum, I was really terrible at New World wines or American wines. Let's just put it, American Australian wines. But now I'm not, right? Because I work with them all the time. I taste them many times a night. So, people getting them confused is simply, I think, just a matter of touching classics more. You just there has to be a greater frequency there. That being said, there are certain things that we appreciate about, say, world-class Brunello and world-class Barolo that tends to start to, while they might have been far apart in certain styles, like when you get to that really upper tier, they start to kind of act like each other. And then with age, it gets even more complicated.
I was going to say, I think age is where that comes in and you start to experience it. So let's shift a little bit. You are actually speaking at TEXSOM on a panel discussion of, what's the actual title? It's like, what makes a great wine list?
Or award-winning.
Why are you on that panel? Because...
Right, yeah. So,
do you have one of those?
Yeah, thank you for the setup. So Pappas Brothers has a grand award, Wine Spectator Grand Award at each location. And for the longest while, they were the only company with 3 grand awards in the whole world.
Wow.
So since 2019, when the third one got their award, from 2019 to just this past year, they were the only ones with 3 grand awards. And there's a group in San Francisco that now has 3. But, for our industry, it's like one of the greatest honors a wine list can get. Very specific criteria. So it's lists that get these types of awards tend to be a certain kind of list, like a big list with lots of selections and vintages and formats. There's another great award, World of Fine Wine.
The World of Fine Wine. So that's a publication out of the UK, yes?
So they have their own wine list awards. They break it into categories. So it's more like the Academy Awards, right? You can win best shortlist, by the glass list, spirits, all of that sort of thing. And so we won best long wine list in the world and wine list of the year last year for our Galleria location. So it was tremendous. But there are a few other types of awards a wine list can receive, and we're going to be talking about that tomorrow
as well. Okay. Yeah. And to be clear too, like you also, for Michelin, you were just announced as this past year as Texas's best sommelier. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, the Michelin Sommelier Award. Yeah.
Which was great. On that. I know.
I mean, it might have something to do with the wine list, but yeah, that was really nice. It's an individual award, right? So, but the restaurant did get recommended on the guide. Last year was really special
it was a great year all around. And, you know, for those that don't know Pappas Brothers, right? Like in Texas, to me, it's definitely one of those temples of steak, right? Obviously, steak is a big deal here in Texas, and we love our red beef, but there are steak houses, and then there is Pappas Brothers. And I think it should be said that, you know, it winning a grand award for all three locations is a big statement, because Dallas and Houston really do kind of run the show when it comes to like best fine dining in the state, and then being able to have that recognized, and also at the third location in Houston. Tell me a little bit about, and I know we'll talk about this at the seminar, but what does it take? What do you have to do to build a award-winning wine list? Like, what is involved in that? You've mentioned vintages, you've mentioned depth of producers. Like, how do you approach it?
To be clear, though, I inherited a grand award.
Fair enough.
It was more about maintaining it. Like, the challenge was don't lose it, right? I don't know how many people lose it, but we didn't want to ever be one that lost it. So it's maybe a different approach where you've inherited something someone else or several other people have built, and you're trying to maintain it. That being said, though, we were all participating in building the third location because we had two templates as to what to do or how to build it. We just basically used that playbook, never intending to get a grand award, and it ended up happening. So what that says is that, so our approach to the construction of the basic list was more or less correct, right? So we need to focus in the places that we know our guests like, that make sense with the food, but then show a little bit more personality in other places, right? In our case, the Pappas family is like very trusting. So we have way more champagne and white wine than we probably should.
For a steakhouse?
For a steakhouse.
But there's plenty of red wine to be clear.
Red wine.
But you do have some great champagne and white Burgundy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and because we've been buying for so many years, you can have things on the list that have been priced away from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and they look really attractive now considering where wine is priced. But that's all a product of the investment that the ownership made, and then a lot of people kind of putting their mark on the list and building it kind of to reflect some of their personality or what they think is happening in the wine world. And I'll give you a solid example. So in 1995 or the late 90s, when they started thinking along this way, and certainly in the early 2000s, there weren't as many people investing heavily in like Jean-Louis Chauve.
Yeah.
Right? They were an icon then. They certainly still are now. But what we inherited back in 2010, 11, I'm not kidding you, like case stacks. I mean, like to the ceiling of Jean-Louis Chauve. It is insane, both red and white.
Wow.
So that was a really good example. And same with like Domaine Leroy, to the ceiling, you know, Coach, DRC, everybody. And so it was really amazing that somebody had that vision. They had the trust of the ownership, and they spent the money in that way, knowing that they would never see the payoff. And then we get to inherit that and sell some crazy wines.
So you walk into a position where you're already basically kid in the candy jar when you walk into the cellar, and you're like, how do I not lose? Let me ask you this though. So you're talking about that happening in the late 90s. But by and large, the way I think we all know it is like New York gets most of the best wines. The West Coast gets a lot of the best wines. And I feel like Texas has had to have this long journey of fighting for, y'all, we have people here that want good wine. Can you talk a little bit about the access, right? Like, has the access gotten better? When was it still difficult, like in terms of your tenure there, to actually get some of these allocations, to find these, you know, deep vintages, things like that?
The best way to tell that story is really like the talented importers, to be honest. Like, because you have either, whether it's an importer or a broker who's maybe Texas based or sees Texas as like a good market, will then convince like, well, they can control the flow of wine. So, you know, you're getting as quick a look at something as the New York people are.
Okay. So you're not the second call,
Right.
or the 10th call or
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
It also has to do with them convincing the producers to visit markets in Texas, right? So I would say like in those early 2010s where we felt like we were on the front or as much on the front of say some great emerging Burgundy producers that New York was excited about. But that was because of really great importers. Now you also have to be on the buying end, like also aware enough to go, holy cow, this is good.
Yeah.
And recognizing that there's something, even if you don't get it, like if let's say somebody makes a presentation, it seems like everybody's energized about what's happening and you don't get it, you at least can recognize, okay, maybe I don't get it. Maybe I can invest in this a little bit. Maybe I will get it later. And then sure enough, the whole thing goes crazy. I mean, some real concrete examples of that are like Comte Ligier Belair.
Okay.
Like we got really early looks at that. He came to Houston.
Yeah.
Good luck getting, those,
that
with all
kind
respect,
of a visit.
With all respect.
Yeah. No, but I think this is important. And I actually want to say this because this is for the Italian wine market. And I, having spent a lot of time there in the past year and a half, as an American, they're like, oh yeah, well, I've been to New York. I've done my visits through New York and I've gone to San Francisco. And it's like, and I'm like, can you build a case for why people should be visiting Texas when it comes to trying to distribute their wines there?
Look, and I completely understand a winery that they're like, okay, I only have enough to get to one market.
Sure.
New York's going to be our market.
Yeah.
It's very American.
Yeah.
But Texas is its own country in a bunch of different ways, culturally too, but like economically. So you want to figure out this market. It's not like you just show up once. You really need to kind of figure out the culture. You really need to figure out the players, like how wine is presented, how wine is drunk, how wine is priced. And in the meantime, there's a lot of symmetry between a Texan culture and an Italian culture.
I totally agree.
And you're going to have a good time when you're here.
Yeah.
So I can't wait, like, for example, when producers visit in March to go to the rodeo in Houston, right? It's amazing. So it just takes, you just need to recognize it for what it is. It's a great market. It's a pretty stable market. And you just need to come and figure out what's going to work there. But I got to be honest, most of this state, if I'm talking about Texas in general, just appreciates the attention. They just love that you showed up.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
And they want to welcome you. Yeah.
Dallas, Houston, and Austin, they just have great sommelier communities and wine professionals, but it's those other little nooks and crannies, those like second tier markets that they're just like, oh, finally somebody showed up. Like when they're going to buy a ton of wine. Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Midland.
Absolutely. I was going to say Midland, Odessa, San Antonio, those are markets that are so untapped. And yet they have such it's like if you know, but there's serious wine buyers there. And in terms of population, right? Like Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin corridor, those are three of the largest population markets in the country all in one state.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you can knock them out really quick. We don't have to sell Texas anymore. Please come if you would like.
Yeah.
Because we love Italian wine. So I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I am curious, you're here as a speaker this time around, but you get to attend the different sessions. Are there some that you're looking forward to sitting in on this year?
Yeah. The people who write tasting notes, that's going to be something really interesting for me.
Yes.
Because that's, you dabble in it as a programmer, but somebody who does that for a living, that's going to be a pretty cool one. Yeah. And then your book one that's coming out. Yeah. That's going to be good. Again, these are things that I don't normally get to interact with. So.
Right. It's funny because I think something like me, I wanted to sit in on the blind tasting one this morning just because I liked that they were calling it an approach to tasting, breaking things down like that. But I feel like, if someone like you're already at the master level, but how much are you really trying to taste in that way still? I mean, just because you're not trying to achieve another certification, so to speak, do you feel the urge or the desire, the need to keep your palate sharp in that way, to be able to approach things blind?
Yes, is the answer. Like, you got to kind of stay in fighting shape.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, I have 3 teams of very ambitious sommeliers. So we're constantly blinding, training. And obviously in my role, I'm doing a lot of teaching, right?
Yeah.
So I need to make sure the things that I'm pulling for blinds are acting in the way that they should. So we have so many people working so hard on that specific skill, I do try to keep sharp.
You keep it sharp.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And let's talk about that, because I love how you rightfully said, you inherited this list at Pappas Brothers, or the 3 locations, building the 3rd one out. You guys have such a robust program of training and developing kind of the next group of sommeliers. Like you said, they're an ambitious group of sommeliers. Can you talk a little bit about what that entails? Like, when you're saying that, is it just like we have, 3 classes a week and we want them to show up? How much opportunity do they have to grow in their education?
Yeah, we're lucky that our restaurants are busy and that we have all manner of guests. So they get to open great stuff, classic stuff, not so classic stuff all the time, every night. They're not bored. And so again, we were talking about like frequency, like they're opening, they're tasting, they're talking, they're opening, they're tasting, they're talking. Now, in addition to that, and that's the priority, take care of the dining, take care of the guest. But in addition to that, they have a few other development opportunities over a course of like a quarter or a 4-week period. So they're going to do specific tasks education wise with their own wine directors. And then like I have an overall development plan for the whole group, and it's all very organized, and it more or less looks like a quiz, and then some blind tasting and some service scenarios. So there's not a opportunity for them to like kind of rest and just kind of go on autopilot. They're constantly pushing themselves and then learning all the operational things too, because that's a huge piece, is that if you want to further your career, you need to be a good operator.
I'm so glad you brought that
and
up.
Programmer.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about like the tasting and growing in your career in terms of, if you're going into the Court of Master Sommeliers or down the Master of Wine path, et cetera, all that it takes to get those certifications. But at the end of the day, you're running a business, right? Like you're required to look at those margins. There's spreadsheets, there's inventory, the maybe not so sexy part of it, right? But you can't grow in your professional path if you're not aware of how to do those things, right?
And if you're going to be attractive to another employer, we're not opening a bunch of restaurants. So they, sadly, there's not like leadership opportunities for them, within the company. But if you want to have the skill set that other employers desire, we need to get you to a place where you're a very like attractive potential candidate.
I guess I'd never really thought about you guys as an incubator, right? Like that you're really grooming so many people that are successful, at least in Texas, have probably walked the floors of Pappas Brothers in some level.
That's on purpose. So we designed it to be that way to help. First of all, we knew that like if we could pack you full of the things, the skills that you need to run your own program, and then you go in and eventually do that, it helps applicant flow on the other side too. So knock wood, like we hope to always just have people wanting to be a part of the program. So far, so good.
Okay. All right. So let's bring this back to Italian wine and we'll wrap this up. You've taken quite a bit of time in Italy personally, right? Like would you say you lived in Alba, or you spent a good month there or something with your family?
Yeah, no, a few weeks.
Few weeks. Yeah. Okay. Clearly you like Piedmont. How has Italian wine influenced you in general? Like there is a world of wine, and obviously you've dropped a few French names, et cetera, but where does it sit in terms of like how it moves you, how you feel connected to that particular country in terms of what it's meant in your wine journey or personal life?
Well, it's easy to be there, if that makes any sense. And yes, my wife speaks Italian, like she has family there, and our kids like being there, but it's just easy to be there. And so like, it's a good contrast to being in like a busy restaurant in a big city, and you go to the country and everything slows down a little bit and you feel like you have things perspective to offer, and meeting people and being excited about exploring things. So that to me is like, okay, that's always been a goal, is to like, maybe my next chapter is going and parking myself in wine country and just trying to really be an expert in a specific place, or try the production side. I have no idea, but it's just a place that I've just been drawn to naturally, and I get to visit a lot. It's very important to me.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for taking some time. I know the halls are really busy right now with everybody moving through different seminars. I think we're about to have lunch.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. But so thank you for taking the time to visit, and good luck on your seminar. I sadly will not be in it because I think mine's at the same time as yours. This is the worst part of TEXSOM, y'all, is like the seminars are all so good. If you end up having to choose one that is up against another one that you might want to see. So it's kind of a bummer, but thank you for your time, and I will see you soon. Here's a Texas wine tidbit about one of the true steady hands of Texas viticulture. Neil Newsom, whose journey echoes both grit and growth. Neil and Janice Newsom planted their first vines in 1986, starting with just 1 hectare of Cabernet Sauvignon on land that had been used for cotton and was, in Neil's words, some of the sorriest farmland they owned. The heat, poor soil, and water scarcity loomed large, but so did hard work, perseverance, and a belief that quality grapes could thrive where others expected failure. Fast forward to today, and Newsom Vineyard spans about 50 hectares on the Texas High Plains, growing more than a dozen grape varieties, including Sangiovese, Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, Tempranillo, Albarino, and Petite Syrah. What made Neil's start even more daring? They stopped growing cotton altogether in 2006, shifting fully into grapes and viticulture. Neil has spoken out about the challenges of farming with weather, herbicide drift, and just the sheer unpredictability of growing wine grapes in West Texas. Still, he keeps going. His son, Nolan, has become increasingly central, managing tasting rooms in Comfort and Tomball and helping move the family from just selling fruit to wineries toward bottling under their own label. So when you see Newsom on the label or enjoy a smooth Texas Sangiovese, remember, it comes from land that once held only cotton and a family that chose to reimagine what that land could grow. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncork Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in-state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas-made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas Wine Tidbit in every episode, a fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene.